I've hiked alone all my life. I've been lost, stalked by bears caught in storms. But nothing terrified me like what I found in the Monongahela National Forest last October. Because something out there wanted me to never come back. There's something about being swallowed by the forest that cleanses you in a way civilization never can. The air tastes sharper, colder, older, like it remembers things you've forgotten. My friends joke that I'll end up as one of those missing hikers you hear about in Appalachian true crime podcasts. That weekend, I drove into the Monongahela National Forest in West Virginia. It was early October, the leaves bleeding into gold and copper. I parked at a gravel lot near a trailhead called Laurel Fork South Wilderness, slung on my pack, and started walking before sunrise. The first hours were bliss. Mist hung low between the trees, and the only sounds were chickadees and the rhythmic crunch of my boots on damp leaves. The trail followed a narrow stream, and eventually opened to a gorge maybe 40 feet deep. There used to be a bridge there, long since washed out. In its place, a fallen oak spanned the gap, thick, weather-smoothed, and sturdy enough to cross if you weren't afraid of heights. I'd read about it on a hiking forum. Perfectly safe, one commenter wrote. Just don't look down. I stepped onto the log, testing my balance. The stream whispered below. The bark was slick from dew, but I made steady progress, eyes on the opposite bank. Halfway across, I heard a crack behind me, the unmistakable thunk of wood on wood. Another, then another. I froze. The sound came from the far side, not where I was headed, but behind me, from the bank I'd just left. I turned. A man stood there. He looked to be in his late 40s, built heavy, dressed in old canvas work clothes that might have been green once, but were now the color of mud. He had a thick beard, eyes shadowed under a cap, and in his hands, raised high, was an axe. He brought it down hard into the trunk of the fallen oak. Thud! A shower of bark splinters burst outward. "Hey!" I shouted, voice echoing in the gorge. "What the hell are you doing?" He didn't answer. He just lifted the axe again. Thud! My stomach dropped. He was trying to chop through the tree, the only thing connecting me to either side. "Stop!" I screamed, taking a few careful steps backward. I'm still on it. No reaction. Another swing. The log vibrated under my boots. A deep crack snaked through the wood, moaning like a wounded animal. I ran, arms spread for balance. I sprinted the remaining 15 feet and leapt to the far bank. I hit the dirt hard, rolled, and scrambled up, chest heaving. While I looked back, the man had lowered his axe. He stood perfectly still, watching me. We locked, eyes across the gorge. I could barely see his face under the brim of his cap, but there was something off about the way he smiled. Not anger, not madness, just an eerie, calm satisfaction, like this was a test he'd been waiting for me to fail. Then he turned and walked back into the trees. I stayed frozen for a long minute, trying to process what had just happened. There was no road nearby, no other hikers, no cabins marked on a map. I considered going back, but with that man still somewhere between me and my car, it seemed safer to keep going forward until I found another trail out. The forest felt different after that. Quieter, heavier. Even the birds seemed to avoid singing. I hiked fast, every rustle behind me making me flinch. I told myself the man was just some hermit. Maybe he didn't want trespassers near his property. Maybe he was crazy. But the deeper I went, the more I realized there shouldn't have been any property out here at all. This was federal land. Hours passed. The sun dipped behind a ridgeline, and I started looking for a place to camp before dark. Eventually, I found a small clearing near a creek and pitched my tent there. I built a small fire and tried to eat, but every bite turned to dust in my mouth. The silence pressed in on me until I couldn't take it anymore. I needed noise, something human. So I turned on my phone's voice recorder. It's something I do when I hike, a kind of trail journal. I hit record and started talking, my voice shaky. October 14th, Laurel Fork Wilderness. Something weird happened today. Some guy tried to cut me off on the gorge crossing. I don't know who he was, but I think I'm being followed. I paused, listening, and from somewhere behind the tree line, faint but distinct, came a soft chop. Once, twice. I spun toward the sound. Nothing but trees. I shut off the recorder, threw dirt on the fire, and crawled in my tent, heart pounding. At some point during the night, I woke to a smell, smoke, faint but sharp. Not my fire. I drowned it. I unzipped the tent just enough to peek outside. Through the trees, maybe 50 yards away, a small orange glow flickered. Another campfire. Someone else was out here. Relief and fear twisted in my chest. Maybe it was a park ranger. Maybe it was the man. Curiosity won. I slipped out quietly, leaving my pack behind, and crept toward the glow. The forest floor muffled my steps, leaves soft underfoot. When I got close enough to see clearly, I stopped dead. It wasn't just a campfire. It was a campsite, but one that made my skin crawl. A crude lean-to of branches leaned against a rock wall. Around the fire pit were wooden carvings, small, faceless human figures made of sticks and bark, arranged in circles. Hanging from the trees above were bundles of twigs, bound with twine, swaying gently in the breeze. Beside the fire sat an old metal axe head, half buried in the dirt. And on a flat stone near the flames, carved deep into the surface, were words. No way back. I stumbled backward, my throat closing. My eyes darted through the trees. No movement, no sign of life. The fire burned low but steady, as if someone had just been there. Then from the shadows beyond the lean-to, I heard it again. Thud. A single, slow axe strike. Then another, and another. I ran. Branches whipped my face as I tore through the forest, not caring which direction I was going. My lungs burned. My hands bled from grabbing at trees for balance. I didn't stop until I tripped over a root and fell hard into a patch of ferns. When I looked up, the moon had broken through the clouds, and standing between the trees, maybe 20 feet away, was the man with the axe. Only it wasn't just him. There were two more figures beside him, each one identical. Same clothes, same build, same cap pulled low. None of them moved. They just stood there, lined up silhouettes against the silver light, watching me. I couldn't even scream. I just scrambled up and ran again, blindly, crashing through brush until the forest thinned and the land started to slope downward. Ahead, through the trees, I saw something pale, another fallen tree, crossing what looked like the same gorge. Maybe it wasn't, but it didn't matter. It was a way across. Behind me, I heard footsteps, many of them. The figures were following four now, maybe five, emerging from the tree line like shadows, peeling off the dark. Their heads tilted in eerie unison, watching me cross. Halfway over, I lost my footing on a slick patch and nearly went down. I caught myself, heart hammering. Below, the stream murmured like distant laughter. And then came the sound again. Thud! From behind. One of the figures had reached the edge and was lifting an axe. Thud! The log shuddered. Thud! I bolted the last few feet and jumped, rolling onto solid ground. I didn't stop running until I burst out of the forest onto a dirt road. My car was still there. I dove inside, slammed the doors, and fumbled the keys with shaking hands. When the headlights flared on, they illuminated the tree line. Empty. No one there. I drove until I hit a main road, then another, until cell service came back. I pulled over and called 911. The dispatcher listened patiently as I tried to explain the man, the axe, the carvings, the copies of him chasing me through the woods. She promised to send a ranger to check it out, but her tone said she didn't believe a word of it. By the time I reached the nearest town, the sky was turning gray with dawn. I got a cheap motel room and collapsed on the bed. I didn't sleep. The next day, a ranger named Douglas came to take my statement. He was polite, professional, skeptical. I showed him the map where I thought the campsite had been, described the carvings, the fire pit, the carvings on the stone. He took notes and nodded. We'll send a team to look. Sometimes folks set up illegal camps out there. You might have run into one of them. What about the guy trying to chop down the log while I was on it? I asked. He looked at me for a long moment. You sure you weren't hearing things? Wind can play tricks on sound in those gorges. I wanted to argue, but I could tell it was pointless. Before he left, he asked to see my phone, said he'd copy the voice recording I mentioned. I handed it over. When he returned it, his face was pale. Did you edit this? He asked. No. Why? He showed me the playback. At first, it was just my own voice. October 14th, Laurel Fork Wilderness. Something weird happened today. Some guy tried to cut me off on the gorge crossing. I don't know who he was, but I think I'm being followed. Then there was silence. And then, faintly, under the rustle of leaves, a whisper. My voice again, but wrong. Slower. Drawn out. Left that same day. I haven't gone hiking since. Sometimes, when I can't sleep, I replay the recording. The ranger kept a copy, and I kept one too. Each time, it sounded a little different. Last week, there were two voices whispering instead of one. And last night, when I played it again, I swear I heard the faint crack of an axe at the very end. Right before my own voice, distorted and trembling, said a final word I don't remember ever recording. Run. If you ever find yourself hiking alone in Monongahela National Forest, and you hear the sound of an axe echoing through the trees, don't stop to look. Just run. Some trails were never meant to be crossed.